The Baltic region in the beginning of the 13th century. During the Middle Ages, this region witnessed crusades of German and Scandinavian Christian knights against the Baltic pagan tribes. This conversion by conquest was endorsed by the Pope, who appointed Albert von Buxtehude as bishop to the new flock. Bishop Albert founded the city of Riga in 1201 as his base for military and commercial enterprise in what is nowadays Latvia. In the Middle Ages, this land was called Livonia, and Riga was the port of arrival of the Crusaders, which were invited by Bishop Albert to bolster his campaigns against the pagans. In 1202, Bishop Albert also founded a chivalrous monastic order, the Livonian Brothers of the Sword, also known as the Sword Brethren, which got the blessing of Pope Innocent III in 1204. Their crest consisted of a sword topped by a cross. This order was based on similar chivalric orders in the Holy Land, like the Knights Templar and Hospitallers. These monastic knights would be recruited from the nobility in Germany. Most of them would already have been trained knights when entering the order. But what set them apart from other knights was their monastic vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience to the church. They would not bear personal coats of arms or fight for personal glory like knights usually do. This blend of highly trained warriors who were only loyal to the church was just what Bishop Albert needed, because he needed a permanent presence of knights to guard his conquests. The campaign in the Baltic was characterized by seasonal campaigning, after which wooden strongholds were erected to control the populations in the newly won territories. These wooden structures would then gradually be replaced by stone castles, which were impregnable to attack by revolting pagan tribes. The Sword Brethren had therefore several advantages over their pagan adversaries. They had strong castles from where they were safe from enemy attack, and they could perform a mounted charge with a heavy cavalry force. This reaped some important victories in regular battle, like the one near Velin in 1217, where they defeated the Estonians and killed an important Estonian leader. A genuine problem for the order were their low numbers. From the control of a territory of more than 100,000 square kilometers, they could field 100 knights at most, which meant one knight for every 1,000 square kilometers. There were, however, also several hundred non-noble foot soldiers in the order, called sergeants, who bolstered their numbers to several hundred. Nevertheless, due to its relatively small size, the order was vulnerable to losses, which were difficult to replace, as they were dependent on recruits from Germany who were willing to live a life of poverty and hardship in cold and inhospitable lands. On top of that, the order preferred campaigning during winter, because the frost made the ground firm for heavy cavalry, and the frozen rivers could be used as roads into the interior without having to cross the woodlands. The pagan uprising of 1223 showed the weakness of the order. The pagans largely avoided open battles and rallied to their fortress of Tartu. This way, the Sword Brethren could not use their heavy cavalry and had to conduct a long and costly siege. Furthermore, the pagans called in the help of the neighboring Novgorod Republic. It took the Sword Brethren more than 1 year to conquer Tartu, which they finally had to take in a costly storming of the walls. The pagan revolt of 1223 was the beginning of a string of setbacks for the order. First, the Teutonic Order came to the Baltic in 1226, which meant a rivalry for money and crusaders between the two German monastic chivalrous orders in the same region. Second, Denmark got the northern half of Estonia by papal mediation in 1228, which meant a loss of revenue. Third, the order became increasingly confronted by ambushes by the pagans, who became more careful to avoid a pitched battle with the order. In 1236, a group of German crusaders who were unaware of the crusading practices in the Baltic arrived in Riga and insisted on having an early campaigning season in wet autumn. The Sword Brethren were honor bound to comply to the wishes of their visitors and ventured out into the wet wilderness. The result was that the crusaders were ambushed in the swamps near Saule, where they could not use their speciality, the mounted charge. The knights were picked off or driven into the swamps, where they drowned. Around 50 knights of the order were slaughtered by the local lightly armed locals, including the Grandmaster of the order. The Battle of Saule marked the beginning of the end of the Sword Brethren. They didn't have the financial and manpower base to replenish these kinds of heavy losses. The Brethren had to merge with the Teutonic Knights to survive, although they managed to maintain some kind of autonomy within the Teutonic Order. We can conclude that the Sword Brethren were chosen men which blended the chivalric warrior qualities with the discipline of monastic life. This enabled them to conquer Latvia and Estonia in a relatively short time span and keep it despite their relatively few numbers. After 2 decades, their resources became overstretched as a result of their conquests, and their initial advantages in battle and castle building were gone as their adversaries resorted to guerrilla, which became the undoing of the order in 1236 at the Battle of Saule. This shows that the order was initially an elite, which lost their edge by their inability to adapt to the new conditions of warfare in the Baltic. If you like my content, don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell to get notifications for new content.